It's curry. Let me munch a quick bit of curry. Oh, son.
Patrick Schwarzenegger, and obviously.
I'm sorry. Patrick Schwarzenegger, as in Arnold's son and his ex-wife, Maria Shriver? Humble, everyday people? This guy's in Gen V? This show is about average Americans fulfilling their dreams of shit they made off work in their garage.
Mosh is a protein bar made specifically for your brain, with ingredients that support a healthy brain. Like,
is eating a ton of cookie dough good for your brain? As if so, I'm fucking Einstein. I hadn't heard that, but if so, that explains why I'm so good at puzzle games.
Was diagnosed with Alzheimer's back in 2003. He passed away. I have been working day in and day out trying to find a cure.
And he's in a break finding the cure to make a rebranded protein bar with cookie dough in it.
$500,000 for a 2% stake in our business.
And to jump in.
I'm sorry, glad you're editing this. That is early in the video, would get us demonetized. One more take. Shove that mosh ball up your butt. There you go. Safe.
And so Patrick kept saying to me, Mommy, invest in what you want. Invest in your own life.
Mommy? Grown adult said, Mommy, I want to make a protein bar. Is he going to ask that?
Mommy? Yeah, well, yeah. That's my boss.
There's something wrong with that.
Now there are some that say up to 50% of all these cases could be prevented.
Yeah, of course, I believe that too. They're talking about like healthy diet, healthy exercise, mental activity, that's life stuff. It's not, they're not bagging out Mosh protein bars.
500,000 for 2%. You're telling me, Mommy, this bar is worth $25 million.
And it's going to be worth more.
Tell me why, Mommy, it's worth that.
$10 million online.
Oh, wow.
Mosh bars. $10 million online.
It's unfortunate when a Nepo business wins, but that's good. 10 million online in 2 years?
Call it just over $100,000.
$100,000 a month.
Exactly, yeah.
What's the cost per click? Cost per customer acquisition? What's your CAC? That's the real question. Show me your CAC, Mommy.
150. But we have over 11,000 subscriptions a month. 200,000 plus in monthly revenue.
200,000, you said? Subscription revenue is pretty good. People are buying the bars and subscribing. Really? The main thing here is like, this seems like a rich kid's business that's doing pretty well. They just want to add on Shark Tank. They're already independently wealthy, and the business is growing and generating cash. But what do they need a Shark's investment?
I don't like your strategy for retail. Retail in this space is
We are in 9 stores here. We are doing 2 or 3, the most popular bar in the store, bar none. So I don't necessarily agree with you.
I'm choking on the valuation.
Don't choke.
I can't get there. I know.
All right. She's kind of in ratio there. It is refreshing, and it sucks to see, that it's like well-heeled rich people who already know all this language. But like they were ready for the common question, and are kind of able to speak the language they usually use to like intimidate them. She's kneeling right now, by the way. So getting literally live calls.
And I just don't know if we'll hit the $1 million mark.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
know you're right.
Yeah. You guys are
You were out when they said $500,000. I've never seen David doesn't like this bad, bro.
You must free your food from feeding.
About fucking time someone dealt me.
Don't be free on orders over $50. Only on posting.
That's what I got. Stop pausing on ads. I like watching ads. I don't want to stop pausing. You know what I'm going to pause on? When I pass by your grave. Or I'll pause to take a piss. 500 all that escalated. You should hear me in grocery stores, bro. I said to everybody. Bebo!
Lori?
All right, Lori.
That was one. You want to watch a movie? You're going to need a big screen.
What? We actually have to watch the same
Like
thing
you?
again and break it
Like
down.
better.
No, you're kidding me.
Dad, are there fees in this food?
A Bebo ad would go so hard right now. God, I'd love to see a Bebo ad right now, please.
Overdraft charges? Go
garden. Meanwhile, smarty man is checking his boundaries.
Maria, why is this important to you?
So my dad, who was the smartest,
She mentioned it. Her dad had Alzheimer's. Why are we asking that again? It's going to make up your mind. Also, the real question should be like, is there any proven science that this bar is good for your brain more than any other protein bar? Maybe she has Alzheimer's. I'm asking again. Oh my God, Lori needs the bar.
so to watch a man with a brain like that not know who I was, not know what a fool
It's a protein bar. If this was like an Alzheimer's research institute that had scientists working there, it's like co-opting a very serious problem. It's like saying homelessness is a real problem, and then showing like black and white photos.
The Trump regime has crossed into full autocracy. If you can't see that or don't believe it, it's time to wake up to our shared reality. Let's start with Doge, the Elon Musk self-serving faux department of government efficiency that Trump has subcontracted so that he can play golf and take the credit without doing any work. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island dismissed Republican claims of targeting waste, fraud, and abuse as a mere cover for their true agenda, comparing Trump's dismissal of inspectors general to firing the cops before robbing the bank. Whitehouse argued that the administration was intentionally destabilizing government institutions to benefit Trump's wealthy donors and special interests that view regulations as an obstacle. Meanwhile, in a separate legal effort, 23 Democratic state attorneys general have intensified their challenges against Doge's actions, as well as deep budget cuts at the Treasury, USAID, and other federal agencies. Arizona's Attorney General Chris Mays said, "In the US, we appeal rulings we disagree with. We don't ignore court orders or threaten judges with impeachment just because we don't like the decision. This is a coup, plain and simple." So far, according to Doge's own recently hacked website, no corruption or excessive waste has been found. The listings that they put, some of which compromise national security, weren't anything out of the ordinary. It's just that Musk and Trump have no idea how government works, so some of these things came as a bit of a shock to them. The latest round of layoffs came as Musk said on Thursday that the US should delete entire agencies from the federal government as part of his strategy to shutter any investigations or regulations that affect his own businesses. And let's be honest, if Musk really wanted to cut federal spending, he would start with military spending. The USA is the largest military spender in the world. In 2023, it paid out $880 billion, more than the next 8 countries combined. And then there's the cost of the military itself. In 2023, the US military spent approximately $820.3 million, or roughly 13.3% of the entire federal budget for that fiscal year. Instead, Doge has culled individuals, people, and policies whose ideology Musk and MAGA disagrees with, especially essential diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in foreign aid to black Africans. This is not about cost savings. It never was. It's simply white supremacy, racism, and abject cruelty. I mean, in your opinion, you might not want 0.63% of the federal budget spent on foreign aid. But what Musk isn't telling you is that this independent agency's goal is to counter Chinese and Russian influence and advance America's interests by strategically providing foreign aid where it's needed. Broadly, USAID aims to fight disease, reduce poverty, and address humanitarian needs. It's a big mission that makes up just a tiny slice of overall government spending, but ensures that America leads the world with outreach, providing life-saving assistance to approximately 130 countries, preventing AIDS and other diseases from reaching America. But the removal of funding won't just stop with foreign aid. Trump, Musk, and the MAGA Republicans are coming for your health care too. And I know they said they wouldn't, but they lied. The latest GOP budget plan proposes slashing up to $880 billion from Medicaid, with more more hardline conservatives demanding even deeper reductions. Despite this, Trump and Mike Johnson claim these cuts will target only waste and abuse, denying that Medicaid itself is in jeopardy. However, the notion of painless Medicaid cuts is misleading. The program provides essential care for tens of millions of Americans, including seniors in long-term care, people with disabilities, low-income workers, and children.
Joining me now is Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, a member of the Budget, Appropriations, and Foreign Relations Committees. Senator, it's awfully good to have you here, sir. I'm curious your reaction to what you just heard. Is this spiraling national debt justification for these mass firings?
Well, Alex, it's good to be with you. No, that's all a big lie that they're putting out there because, of course, they're pursuing big tax cuts for very rich people that would add hugely to our deficit. You know, as Hakeem Jeffries said, candidate Trump said he was going to bring down prices. He's not doing that. What he is doing is cutting with a chainsaw important services that benefit every American to make room for those tax cuts for the very rich. And so they want to cut things like Medicaid, Medicare, and on top of that, they will add to the deficit and debt.
So let's get your reaction to Elon Musk's email to hundreds of thousands of federal workers asking them to explain what they've accomplished over the last week of work. I'm curious your reaction to that and what you think the impact will be to thousands of federal workers in your state, in Maryland there, as well as across the country, from these sweeping cuts.
Well, Alex, this is part of what is an illegal rampage by Elon Musk across these federal agencies. And again, the purpose is twofold. One is to make government work for people like Elon Musk, right? They want to get rid of the inspector generals, and they want to make way for taking actions to help people like Elon Musk. The other is to clear the way for tax cuts for the very rich. So this has nothing to do with government efficiency and everything to do with, again, making the government work for Musk. Now, as you said, this most recent order from Elon Musk it's illegal. You even have the new FBI director, right, Patel, saying to his employees, no, Elon Musk doesn't get to do this. You respond to your supervisors. Elon Musk is not, part of the Constitution. He didn't go through the advice and consent process, which is why federal judges have already indicated that there are serious questions about the legality of this whole operation. And I think we need to shut it down.
I want to dig into the legal aspect because many Democrats are sounding the alarm about President Trump and Elon Musk using executive power, claiming they're withholding of congressionally approved funding and then firing federal workers, that it is illegal. It's driving the government into some sort of a constitutional crisis. Are we there yet, sir? Or are the courts working as a check to presidential power and keeping away that crisis for now?
Well, we're there in the sense that Donald Trump has issued all of these executive orders, which anybody can see he doesn't have the power to do. I mean, he's trying to do things by executive order that require congressional action and the normal process. I do think that the courts have been responding well. I mean, when you have this mass illegality, you're seeing all these lawsuits and all these temporary restraining orders. One of them, as you just indicated, relates to the Trump administration's effort to withhold funds for important community priorities around the country. There's a TRO on that. And there are also issues with respect to their firing of these federal employees. Federal employees have due process rights, and Elon Musk and his cohorts are just lying about what they're doing. And there are, for example, for a federal employee, fire them because of misconduct or poor performance. And they're sending out these letters claiming federal employees haven't performed adequately when those federal employees just received glowing performance reports. So they're lying, and this is an illegal operation.
Let's take a look at the sweeping budget plan that's being put forth by the House, because it could result in some pretty steep cuts to Medicaid, to food stamps, to other social safety net programs. What would this proposed $2 trillion in spending cuts mean for average Americans? I'm curious the concerns that you're hearing from constituents. And do you think this budget will get through?
Well, I'm glad you raised this because we were up to about 5:30 a.m. in the United States Senate. The Republicans brought forward their so-called budget resolution, which is clearly setting things up for these huge tax breaks for very rich Americans at the expense of everybody else. And so we tried to put some guardrails around it. So, for example, we said, well, don't cut Medicare. Don't cut Medicaid. I offered an amendment so you wouldn't cut school lunches for kids. And one after another, Republicans refused to put up those guardrails. So it's very clear what their plan is. Their plan is to provide Elon Musk and all those other billionaires who were sitting right behind Donald Trump when he was sworn in with these big tax cuts at the expense of everybody else in America.
I mean, it doesn't seem like that's what they were elected to do, but let's move overseas now. As I ask you about that meeting that you and other senators had with Ukrainian President Zelensky, that was in Munich, that was a couple weekends ago. So on the eve of the third anniversary of Russia's invasion and President Trump's pivot towards Moscow's interests, what did Zelensky say to you about his hopes for ending the war?
Well, Alex, nobody would like to see the war in Ukraine come to an end than the people of Ukraine. I mean, they've lost tens of thousands of people. They're suffering, but they also care about their sovereignty and their democracy and their way of life. And so for Donald Trump to throw the Ukrainian people under the bus is unconscionable, and it's a great victory for Putin and President Xi in China and all those people who wish democracy ill. And of course, it's understandably scaring our European allies because this is more than rhetoric, I believe. This is reality. Donald Trump is on Putin's side, and he's throwing Ukraine under the bus.
Yeah. Let me just say, my executive producer said in my ear that meeting was last weekend, to which I say, it's been a long week. But you're probably feeling a level of jet lag still. So let me ask you about Ukraine, which has indicated it is considering essentially the same U.S. proposal that it turned down last week, one that would give the U.S. half of its mineral and gas revenues with no security guarantee in exchange. So let's take a listen to what the president said about that yesterday.
I want them to give us something for all of the money that we put up, and I'm going to try and get the war settled, and I'm going to try and get all that death ended. So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get.
What do you make of this deal? Are you confident that the administration will negotiate a peace that guarantees Ukraine's security?
Oh, I'm not at all comfortable that they'll do that. In fact, the president began the negotiations by giving up American leverage, by saying that Ukraine could never become part of NATO and the U.S. will provide no security guarantees. They also made territorial concessions right out of the box. Look, Alex, you may get to some of those points through negotiation, but throwing the Ukrainians under the bus from the beginning is no way to do that. With respect to the minerals deal, Ukrainian people recognize that the United States has been on their side. They would welcome American investment in Ukraine, and I'm sure they'd be willing to enter into some kind of arrangements. But for the President of the United States to extort the people of Ukraine when they're under the gun, under fire from Putin, is outrageous. I mean, can you imagine FDR saying to Churchill while the Nazis were bearing down, just give us half your coal reserves and your mineral reserves, and then we'll help you out in the face of these attacks. It's just outrageous. And, people around the world are understandably worried about American leadership. I mean, this is not America first. This is America in retreat.
And we heard that echoed from Munich and beyond after that meeting. So, Senator Van Hollen, I'll leave you to speak with you, sir. Have a good Sunday. Thank you.
And you too. Thank you.
Right now, in rural Pennsylvania, there is a man lying awake because every time he closes his eyes, all he can hear is the deafening buzz of the electrical wires running through his walls. Next to his bed are several medieval knives, a sleek-sour pistol, and a loaded AR-15. Though none of these he will ever need. You see, this man is protected by something much more powerful than any weapon. This is Record Lynch, creator of the popular YouTube channel What If All This, and in the past few months, he has gone completely insane.
I killed your god. You made your society run under a false god since you were too weak to talk to a real one. I stand so that men won't be cattle. Prove me wrong why I just didn't kill your god. I won because I said so. I'm not sure I'm completely correct, but I am completely sure that you are incorrect to the highest degree. You can't ignore this. I won.
10 years ago, on his 13th birthday, Record started his YouTube channel out of what he claimed was boredom. As the name would imply, the channel initially focused on alternate history topics. Videos like, what if the dinosaurs never went extinct? And what if the Cold War never ended?
What if the Cold War never ended? The end of the Cold War was a shock to the human race. That a giant nation like...
His interest in these topics was sparked at a young age from browsing the alternate history wiki, a sort of hub for these theories. While his early videos weren't great by any means, they did have a very small, dedicated niche audience. For the next 5 years, Redgert would slowly post to this channel roughly once a month while he went through high school as a sort of side project. Upon graduating in 2019, he posted an update video announcing he would be gone for the following 6 months.
This is because I'm going to be walking the Appalachian Trail. For those of you that don't know, the Appalachian Trail is more than 2,000 miles of wilderness backwoods trail stretching between Maine and Georgia.
He said he'd be posting updates over Discord. However, the invite link doesn't seem to work anymore, and he pinned a comment explaining one of his mods had obliterated the server at some point during his hike. A little less than 3 months after he embarked on his journey, Redgert came back to YouTube, showing his finish for the first time and claiming he stopped hiking halfway through the trail because he thought making videos would be a better use of his time. However, in a stream the following year, he retells the story in a little more detail.
So I went there for self-improvement mostly, and I thought I'd do the whole thing, but then after a certain while you just get tired of the trail. And after I'd done 500 miles, I decided to only do half the trail. I just wanted to go back to touching physical books and eating hot food. You learn all the lessons you have learned.
Supposedly, the final nail in the coffin was that he drank poop water and got sick. While that stopped him from finishing the trail, it didn't stop him from bragging about it online for the foreseeable future. I'm not exaggerating when I say he mentioned the trail in nearly every video going forward, and routinely posts about it on Twitter as a way to own people who think he's an incel. I hiked 600 miles on the Appalachian Trail alone. I lived in 6 countries. I'm currently speaking at a conference for Army leadership. I run my own company, and I live like this. Call me a virgin all you want. You're approved. Very few of Redgert's claims about himself are verifiable or even have a single source outside of his own word. Well, he probably did hike about 600 miles on the Appalachian Trail, which, by the way, only amounts to a quarter of it, not half. There's no evidence of him ever speaking at an Army leadership conference, and he ignored replies asking for more details. I'm also not sure what someone who has never served in any branch of the armed forces could offer as a speaker. He is a natural-born leader. Other strange claims Redgert has repeatedly made over the years include him dropping out of college, moved to Mexico with no less than 20 tech CEOs, though he supposedly knows nearly 80 more, and apparently founding a social club in LA for influencers, whatever that is. According to him, he did all of this before he ever had any real success on YouTube. While he certainly is well-traveled, likely due to his parents' wealth, as he claims his mom owns a brewery, he can only ever be seen hanging around other rich fail sons like himself. As far as the LA social club goes, on Instagram, he claims he tried to form one, but failed. And no offense to any of the other people involved, but whatever's going on here looks completely insufferable. There's often a nugget of truth to Redgert's claims, but he always exaggerates the details until they're completely meaningless, like his inflation of miles walked on the Appalachian Trail, going from 550 to 600, now half the trail, which would be well over 1,000 miles. Skepticism aside, by this point, Redgert had built a respectable audience off his alternate history videos. But in early 2020, his interest began to branch into politics. This coincided with him dropping out of college to make YouTube his full-time job. With videos about colonies from several hundred years ago, there were now videos about the state of the world today, and some trying to predict the future, like this gem with a thumbnail that says, "Worse the Depression within 3 years," which was posted 3 years ago. His videos all took on a very repetitive formula. Point to a few birth rate charts, blame wokeism, and then tie it all back to the fall of Rome. There's some other great articles, which was posted 3 years ago. This video that says worsen the depression within 3 years, which was posted 3 years ago. This video has also got a very repetitive formula. Point to a few birth rate charts, blame wokeism, and then tie it all back to the fall of Rome or some other great empire. They were factually questionable at best, but it was still sort of enjoyable chud slop. Most of his sources came from books he read, which he showcased on his Goodreads profile, where he's apparently read over 800 books. Here we can see in May of 2022, he read a book about witchcraft that in part focused on Jewish magic. He gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. His interest in magic and other, frankly, insane topics would only grow over the coming years. The same month he finished that book about Jewish magic, infamous political streamer Fosh challenged him to a debate, the top comment for which reads, Fosh had some good points, but at the end of the day, what if Aldous named more books? Which means he won the debate. The following month, Redford posted a video titled 10 Taboo Questions About History and Society, in which he claimed,
I can draw any country in any year in history off the top of my head. I write these videos off the top of my head. I'm 99% talking how much I'm reading, and I'm about to have my 21st birthday. But from a statistical perspective, I have lower than average IQ. I didn't get good grades in school, and I didn't test well on the SAT.
As a brief side note, a year later on Twitter, he claimed his IQ was 110. Not sure how you go from below average to 110 in the span of a year, but who am I to question the words of a soon-to-be deity? Regardless, later in this video, Rickard explores society's relationship with drugs, where he says something a little interesting.
I'm writing this episode while drinking kratom, a low-level Malaysian Tide powder that's used by plantation workers who work in the rubber plantations with their 12-plus hour shifts. I wanted to drink it as a way to deal with the stress of my life.
That seemed to impoverish Asian rubber plantation workers. Rickard was getting deep off stimulants to get through the hard work involved in making a What If Voltage video. What's concerning is, unlike other stimulants, kratom is a little less straightforward, and higher doses acting as a sort of depressant. While not a controlled substance, the DEA notes that not only is kratom addictive, it can also induce hallucinations and psychosis. This, however, didn't stop Rickard from consistently using it to treat his PTSD, something he later claimed to have suffered for years. He said, if doctors want you on benzos for PTSD, then fine, infuse kratom. He takes some kratom, and the pain goes away within 10 minutes. Why has nobody else thought of this? In the same thread, he claims, the modern world is too loud. I think sound is 5 times louder, and light 5 times brighter sometimes. This is something he'd expand on later, but in the meantime, there is something much more important plaguing Rickard's mind. The incel revolution. Finally, a video that speaks to my sensibilities. This video essentially outlines his predictions for a civil war, wherein
revolutions work when there are counter-elites who support them rather than just being peasant uprisings, which always get crushed. The incel revolution would be led by Chads, who would gather incel soldiers to fight for them.
Interestingly, at the beginning of the video, it seems there used to be an ad read, which was abruptly cut after being uploaded. I personally can't imagine why any brand wouldn't want their name attached to a video titled The Incel Revolution. Must be a woke company or something. This video was far from the first time he predicted an impending civil war, but the confidence in his predictions had dramatically increased over the past 4 years. It's about this, seemingly peaked and led to a podcast with Tim Pool, where he said,
Following the election, you have already said you think there will be 1,000 deaths. Politically motivated deaths by April.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
That's right. 1,000 politically motivated deaths by April. In his defense, there's still time. I mean, there could be 999 more in the next month. Around this time, Rickard also picked up the habit of rapidly posting a bunch of YouTube shorts, presumably when he was on a bit of kratom and feeling extra talkative. These were like little treats he'd leave that would clog up my sub box with absolute keynote like, what's my ethnicity, sushi is magic, and no one cares about you, back to back. These were only to hold his audience over for the major offensive he'd been planning. You see, Rickard was going to war.
My announcement is that I just declared war on the internet. And so I challenged Nick Fuentes, Vouch, Sneeko, Destiny, and Hassan to debate. If any of you back down, I want you to know that you're a coward.
To my knowledge, none of the people he called out are even aware he challenged them. Interestingly, however, later in the stream, he can be seen drinking from a strange octopus-shaped mug. Over the next few months, he appeared in person for several talks and interviews, mainly about his prediction that we're headed towards the Second Civil War. However, on Twitter, Rickard started asking some dangerous questions. Why don't you study the methods the Jews use to take control of the media, finance, or lobby, and then do it yourself to become rich and famous? I have several books on the topic. I gotta figure out Jewish mind control myself. Thankfully, he hadn't totally lost his mind, as he clarified in a later post. I do think the Jews are manipulating culture for their self-interest. I do think Jewish influence is instrumental to the modern left in a variety of different ways. However, I draw the line that I don't think this is the predominant cause for why life is so terrible today. He's a moderate anti-Semite guy. He doesn't hate them. He just really wants to study their brain for the source of their immense magical powers. His refusal to fully commit to Jews being the cause of society's problems created a rift in his audience, with many of his followers sending him this image, which infuriated him. Anyone with the name Groiper in their bio is automatically blocked. I like doing this. You guys can rot in hell for all I care. Tensions were rising, and in a moment of weakness, Rutgers randomly exploded on someone, saying, "What's wrong with you people? What did you calling me for when I talked about the form? I get so much of this rhetoric talking about the incel issue. I run a large YouTube channel with millions of viewers at the age of 23, talking about difficult topics. I'm also 6'4", and I've done a lot of cool stuff in my life. I choose not to brag about the Appalachian Trail, or running a group of influencers in LA. I'm clearly not a loser, or underperforming. Get a new argument. Please, try harder." It's important to point out the guy he's responding to here never called him poor and was completely bewildered by the response. From this point forward, Record went dark on all social media, saying he wouldn't be posting until Christmas. And only 5 days later, people around the world woke up to a nice little surprise under their tree. "Hi everyone, I have to tell you folks something. I am a quite advanced mystic and am capable of communicating with the spirit world. If you wonder why I know so much and am so successful at the age of 23, this is part of the reason. I have a photographic memory, and have used this to have hundreds of hours of communication with different spiritual forces, whether God, the devil, Mother Nature, and many more. The Lord God and the Tree of Life, which is the spirit of consciousness connected to you by blood through evolution, are forcing me, against my own consent, to intervene in the game now. I really did not want to do this, but God forced my hand. I did this since I was concerned we'd all die as a society if I don't. They're really worried about you. They can see inside your souls and know you're all miserable. None of you can get laid, have babies, or have any reason to live or connection to the divine. I'm here to explain how the material and spirit worlds work, and this stressful conjunction in evolution. I have 10 hours of video content I've just released explaining what exactly happened to me, what I know of the world, and why modernity is all lies. Everything your era believes are lies. 99% of human history agrees with all this stuff, and modern industrial civilization is the one exception. Keep with the program. They've all venerated the divine, and God doesn't take insults lightly. Your bloodline, God, and the spirit world all believe you are completely insane. They have already won, and you haven't realized it yet. I have already established a unified theory of life that incorporates physics, history, every major religion, biology, Darwinism, Plato, and Aristotle. Watch the video if you're interested. Your ancestors were correct, and you are wrong. There is no irony or joke here. I challenge anyone to disprove me. I support civil debates to prove me wrong with those who would like to do so. I only have 2 requests for you. The first is that you should not bother me or my people. Every day I, or anyone I'm close to, gets personally harassed, I refuse to speak to the divine. God and the tree are really tired of our society's immaturity and will punish this kind of behavior. The second is that all debates and conversations must be based in logical first principles, no ideology, hysteria, or foolishness. Probably the most schizophrenic posts I've seen in my life. And frankly, I've seen a lot. I've seen quite a few. Too many. Too many, honestly. I've seen way too many. Unfortunately, Redford didn't think this was enough to sway the haters and losers to his side, so he followed up with a second post, once again invoking the mystical powers of the Appalachian Trail. You may wonder who I am to say this. I am Rudyard William Lynch, a 23-year-old ethnic Briton from rural Pennsylvania who lives in Texas now. I've hiked the Appalachian Trail, ran a club for influencers in Los Angeles, and I run a YouTube channel with millions of independent viewers a month, named One of Altons. I've lived in half a dozen states and countries, and worked many different jobs. I've read nearly 1,000 books so far in my life, and I could draw any country and any year of history from memory. I also run an organization called the Order of the Crimson Dragon. We're a human capital group which aims at making men as excellent as possible. We are here to take your son and make him as brave, handsome, smart, charming, skilled, and wealthy as possible. The OCD has 70 members with multiple in-person locations across the country. We have members in almost every field, including several celebrities, people from multiple presidential administrations, and genuine intellectuals. We are backed by powerful people in conservative politics, Silicon Valley, and media. I will not share their names since I have class and decency. We have an established leadership and internal management structure that I built very carefully. We have teams working on throwing a conference this spring in Austin, a media company, clubhouse, humanities research center, and spiritual research. For those interested, we are open to the public in 2 months. I've decided to save the deeper analysis for later, because frankly, this thread was only the tip of the iceberg, and it somehow gets so much worse. Below this wonderful schizo-babble, he linked a playlist, including 3 videos amounting to over 10 hours of footage, which I watched all of. While people were spending time with their family over the holidays, Rudyard was hard at work on his magnum opus. These videos served as a sort of autobiography leading up to his encounters with the spirit world. While they start out slow, like a beautiful symphony, they pick up over time into one of the most horrifying climaxes imaginable. He opens the first video by saying his father nearly died of mercury poisoning, eating tuna sandwiches, and that his mother is schizophrenic, which, by the way, is hereditary. Throw that up there. Throughout these videos, he named his clothes several times and partially reading from the script, meaning everything you're about to see was written down prior to him setting up a camera and recording himself reading it back across several days, without once questioning a single thing he had written. To demonstrate how insane this is, his next major claim is that as a child, his mother had violated him over 40 times, waterboarded him, and worse. My mother waterboarded me at least 2 or 3 times for driving me in the bath. My mom has forced me to live with my own sister, and she forced the babysitter. My mom burned me with scalded water, kept me in an unheated room in winter with no blankets, starved me by poisoning me. The first time I smeared my own shit all over the back of the wall. For memories he had apparently forgotten and suppressed until a few years ago, when they suddenly came flooding back after taking multiple high doses of ayahuasca. Wonderful. A few minutes later, shockingly, Rudyard admits that both his mother and his sister were severely mentally ill. I can't imagine why they would think this. He went on to claim that his mother practiced black magic and worshipped the devil. Again, he's posting all of this publicly to his 700,000 sub YouTube channel, completely unprompted. After this, Rudyard went on to announce that he was now broke, something he blames on advertisers not giving him more money because he's conservative.
I know lots of sponsorships in tech for audiences 1/10 my size that make 3 times as much per deal. I know lots of leftist creators making 3 times as much deal as I do. And because conservatives are just blocked out. I'm also pretty clear I'm shadow banned. I say that since there are certain growth curves I see in videos because I study the algorithm. I've been doing this for a decade, where the video goes up and then the growth angle collapses, which is not mathematically what should be happening. And my only expense is my one employee, my manager, who I pay $70K a year, and my rent. I haven't gone on vacation in over a year, for example. My financial situation got bad enough where I'm basically broke now, where I had to ask my dad for money.
This is extremely confusing, given the length of his videos, occasional shady crypto sponsors, and decent views his channel got. He should have made at least 100K last year. Although I suppose 70,000 of that had to go to his manager, who does God knows what, considering he was still uploading glorified PowerPoint presentations once a month, and not doing much else. The powers that be conspire against him, and there's no other reason why he isn't the multimillionaire by now. To retaliate against this evil cabal, Rudyard calls upon his new social club, the Order of the Crimson Dragon, to assemble their members for an in-person conference meant to take place in Austin, Texas a few months from now, called Save the West. As you might have already guessed, there's no information about this conference online, and nobody has come forward with any information or actual involvement in Rudyard's organization, which he describes as a decentralized group of men going hard in different industries and giving him 20% of their paycheck. What a wonderful business model. After laying out this borderline cult Ponzi scheme, he talks about addiction, saying that withdrawal isn't so bad, because one time he didn't pack any kratom when he went on vacation, and as a result thought he was going to die. He reiterates that he's not addicted though, and he gives some really good advice to those who are.
You should use these supplements in a way that is responsible, and you should not be addicted. And if you are addicted and it's bad, you should stop being addicted. I speak to you as an adult.
How insightful. If these videos had any grounding in reality to begin with, going forward, they completely lost any sense of that. But I'm going to try to summarize as best I can. Around the 6-hour mark, he claimed he was using his intuitive alchemical symbolism while on ayahuasca to fight the left. He doesn't explain what this means, but he does give a few examples of important breakthroughs he made during this process.
And I made a series of important breakthroughs. Firstly, I shattered the glass. Then I captured a circle in a triangle.
which you can see with the symbolism on the US dollar.
Again, I have no idea what this means, and frankly, I probably don't want to know. He follows this up with his greatest breakthrough of all, which he claims was lighting up the Tree of Life, an act so monumental that Odin himself took notice. Of course, the Odin he's referring to here is the god of war of Norse mythology, because who else would it be at this point?
When I did all of this, Odin said, "Do you have any idea what you just did, mortal? You killed a god. What you did is just the spiritual equivalent of Alexander the Great's conquest of the Persian Empire. You know, Rudyard, I keep running the simulation until cool stuff happens, which is my motivational system. But what you did is so ridiculous, I need to stop the game to show the public. What this young man did is so innately incredible, I am literally stopping the game to force you to watch it. You can call God now. Do you know what that means? If you're ever worried about something in your world, you can just ask God. The left was holding back your progress while claiming to do the opposite in their classic fashion, given that they are cut off from access to... Sorry, I need to reread this.
That's right, he's stopping the game. Game over, Chud. He won. Through his spiritual battle with the left, Rudyard alone vanquished their woke liberal god, and he used part of these videos to give an enchanting victory speech.
I killed your god. The only thing powering your god was social approval. Now I called your bluff. I killed the social approval. Now that your bluff is called, your positions are completely indefensible. You can't be a leftist anymore. God tells me I already won, but you also know I'm right. You can feel it in your blood. You enjoy squirming, don't you, because you know you're such a worthless loser. I already won. The more you wriggle against my triangle, the more the triangle brings you in and it crashes you, because the more you fight against me, the more everyone else realize you're liars. Every single move you make from this point on hurts you more. Enjoy your last moments as a religion. I killed the god my mother served. I stand so that men won't be cattle. A man cannot be treated as a cow, and for that to happen is a mortal sin. Although I do not support violence, I will die for this cause. I stand so that other men can stand. I have suffered to tell you that you are not weak. You don't need the managers. If I can be strong, so can you. I have set you free. You no longer need a master, and you are a free man. Another thing. How you treat animals in the forest is unforgivable.
Supposedly, Odin had intervened in Rudyard's life after this act of heroism, and promised to solve all of his problems on one condition.
Odin intervened in the game, and he said, "Hey kid, if you write a list of every girl you masturbate to, I will solve every issue in your life." I thought it was kind of weird when Odin said it, but he had healed my PTSD, so I'll do what he says.
This has since been dubbed the infamous Goon List, with many demanding its immediate release. The people demand to know who was on that list. He also goes on to clarify that every woman on the list was white, just in case you're wondering. If any of this sounds like schizophrenic delusions to you, Rudyard explains that's actually because you are schizophrenic, and he is actually very sane.
You may see this message, if you're part of modern civilization, as schizophrenic or autistic. This is just what everyone believed over history. They believed in the spirit world, they believed in God, they believed in ancestors. So you are projecting your schizophrenia and autism onto us. This is just the reasonable message for all of human history.
At multiple points throughout these videos, he alludes to starting what can only be described as the mix between a cult and a new religion around himself and his discoveries in the spirit world. He does this while speaking from the voice of Odin, who he communicates with by taking loads of drugs